For this demonstration, I'm going to show how to upload a CSV file. And where you start is your central management menu for your collection. And so within the menu, the second pane that's only available to administrators. And so if you're just a data editor, you won't be able to batch upload. You pick the import option, which is the fourth down on the list. When you click that, it opens up a greater menu with various import options. You could import a Darwin Core archive or from an IPT, but for this tutorial, we're going to concentrate full text import. In specifics, we're going to import a CSV file. So it won't import a native Excel file. You have to convert it to a CSV. You could do that by going Save As. And then within the Save As type, you have a little different options. So if it's in the Excel format, you will have an option that says Save as CSV. So you can do that. If you have a tab delimited or a pipe delimited, you could still import. It works the same way. And I recommend that before you import, inspect the file. Just look at the data, see what the data looks like. And so this option, we want to import just the basic text file. And the very first step is to select the file. So that's the file that we're going to import for this demonstration. You say open, and you analyze the file. And what this step does is it opens up the field mapper. So these are the fields that are available within the CSV file. And these are the columns. And it's going to guess to which target field within the portal it's going to try to map to. And these target fields, for the most part, are Darwin Core based fields. So these are all the fields that are available. And so it does take a knowledge of the Symbiota fields, the options. And for the most part, it takes a knowledge of Darwin Core. Now it's going to try to guess, but you're probably going to have to make some adjustments to some of these guesses. Now, if we look at this field here, the date format is in a pretty good format, but it's not in the format that's stored in the database, which goes 4 digits for year, dash 2 digits for the month, dash 2 digits for the year. So what I recommend is mapping it to verbatim date, verbatim event date, rather than event date. So if you do map it to event date, it'll analyze the date. And if it's not in a format that it could understand, it'll enter the value in the verbatim date and create a date that matches the database. So that's not a big deal. However, with species, sometimes if genus is available, the species is referred to the specific epithet. So it gets kind of confused there. We want to map species to scientific name. There's also SciName. So you can map it to either. If your scientific name has the scientific author embedded into the name, I highly recommend that you map it to scientific name rather than SciName, because it will try to parse out the author from that field. But in this case, we don't want to try to parse it out. So we just want to do SciName. Next field, abundance. I know Darwin Core, so Darwin Core, this is in the individual count. Darwin Core. So individual count right there. Trap, wasn't able to figure out what trap was. So that's basically sampling protocol. So if we go here, sampling protocol, and if you just start typing, it'll get you in that area. And then province, within here, it's actually state province is what Darwin Core calls it. Locality, that's good. Collector goes to recorded by, that's the name for it. And notes, you map to occurrence remarks. So this mapping is good. And if these are all new records in this case, so it's not a problem. However, you're reloading it records that are already in the database. You want this data to replace what's in the database. You could match the catalog number and it'll replace the target record. So you have to be careful because it replaces the whole record. So for instance, let's say if you have habitat here, habitat in the central record, and it's not here, you're going to lose that data if you're re-importing. So you have to be careful with that. So once it's mapped, then we could do the import. And what it's doing in the next step is it's importing the data, but it's importing it into a temporary table. And it shows you the steps of what it does. It does some data cleaning and so forth. And it puts it in that temporary table. And if you want to review before you activate the data, which I highly, highly recommend, you have 2 links there where you can review the imported data. Click there and it'll show you where it's going in, and it'll show you some of the changes that it does. For instance, the source record didn't have scientific author. So if that name is in the taxonomic thesaurus, it's gonna map and complete the scientific author. It's good to investigate the dates. If you're doing verbatim dates, and let's say you have dates like March 2007, but you don't have a day, it will create a valid date, and it'll say 2007-03-00. So 00 could be used for the day and the month, but you can't use 0000 for the year. These all have day, month, year. That's great. And then everything else looks fine as far as I can tell. Now, the other viewing option right there, that's a download. So this will download the data in a CSV, which can be very useful at times. So it'll show you all the records as a CSV. That could be useful as another review method. So one thing I want to point out is there are some fields that are available that are not in the database, but the importer will handle it and allow you to import, and it'll convert it to match the target database, the Symbiota database. And some of these fields, for instance, lat long, what's required by Darwin core is decimal lat long. However, it's not unusual for data to be saved or stored in degree, minute, seconds. So we do have lat degree, lat minute, lat second, and then you need to say whether it's north or southern hemisphere, and also long degree, long minute, long second, east-west hemisphere. And in this case, it's going to import the data. You can import it separately like that. It'll concatenate everything into verbatim coordinates, which is a Darwin core field. And then it'll create a decimal latitude and decimal longitude based on those values. So that's one option. Let's say your import tool has degree, minute, seconds within one field where degree, minute, seconds is all together. And same with the lat long. So there's another field with lat long. So down here, there's verbatim longitude right there, verbatim longitude, verbatim latitude. So that's options there. Also with the elevation, you can do a verbatim elevation, verbatim date. Those are useful. UTM, if you have your coordinates in UTM, it'll do the same thing as degree, minute, seconds transformations. With elevation, you have options. Darwin core requires elevation be in meters, and it's just a number, but also you have the verbatim elevation that I pointed out down below. If you import into that field, it'll put it in verbatim elevation. It'll try to translate the verbatim text into meters. Some databases also have options where elevation is in one field as just a number, and there's another field where elevation is in the units. And sometimes units would say meters, feet, whatever, and it'll translate it into the Darwin core. So that's another option you could do. There's also special fields, but you probably want to talk to us for like importing a specify file. And you could do special transformations. You have a certain format that you're importing regularly. You could create a stored profile for importing and use that import profile over and over again. So that in that situation, if you go to your menu, and you say import, down here, that will list the saved import profiles. If you want to create a new one, you go here. You would say import. And since this is a saved profile, you want to import it regularly. So let's say this is Greg's field files. So let's say he's going to go out and collect in the same format over and over and over again. So the first import, that's where you set up the mapping. And there's an auto map. If it does an auto map, first off, you do the auto map. And then, again, we go through and do the remapping, the corrected mapping, as I mentioned earlier. Sampling protocol, field name, country, that's state, province. And now what we could do is we could save this. We could save this mapping protocol. So every time we come, we don't have to readjust the mapping. So now if I go to list sampling protocols, or if we go back to the main menu and say import, this option right here, which lists all the import profiles, that's listed there. And you could have as many profiles as you want. So if you have another format that's commonly imported, some collections have dozens of different import profiles. And if I get that same format over and over again, I just go to this profile and I can import, and it remembers the mapping. Now, as saving the import profile, you could also have these specialized scripts that are linked to this profile that does very special cleaning, such as concatenating fields or transformations that are specific to this particular import. So that's really useful. And the import, the character set import, especially when you have data that has special characters, accented characters and stuff like that. UTF-8 is best supported as an import character type. The other one is the basic Windows character type, or a Latin character type that's well supported. What's not well supported is the Mac character type, but Macs have the option of saving it as UTF-8. So that's always the best. And so if you are in an Excel file on a Mac and you say save as, and you want to convert it to a CSV, there is an option somewhere here that should be UTF-8, right there, CSV UTF-8. So that's what you would do. To me, as far as I know, all the data looks good. It seems like it's mapping okay. So I'm going to activate the record. And a little window pops up that says, are you sure? So it's just verifying that, because right now we're going to copy it to the central occurrence table, and that's going to be live. So I said, yep, looks good to me. And it does the steps, does some cleaning stuff, and the upload procedure is complete. Now, once I'm done with that, there's two things I like to do. First thing is I go to the data cleaning tools. And so that's an option near the bottom of the main menu. And then on the bottom of this page, there's analyzing taxonomic names. So it found, right here, it found that of the data that we imported, there were 5 names that were not in the taxonomic thesaurus. So this portal comes, there's a central taxonomic thesaurus that serves as a backbone taxonomy that helps you clean data that's coming in. And those names are verified as valid scientific names. So this tool compares the data against that thesaurus and it found 5 names that are not quite right. Now, we could use this tool to clean up that data. I'm not going to describe it in this tutorial. I'm going to do a totally separate tutorial, actually. But I just want to point that up where we could clean that data. So that's one thing I recommend you do. And then the second thing I recommend you do when you import the data is you update the statistics, because it just increases the stats that are listed here. And you'll see this. Update statistics gives more information there. All right, so I'm just going to talk about a couple of the other things. If we go back to the import tool, we go back to the step where I'm going to pretend like I'm going to re-import, just to show a couple things. There are some tools. So there's a PDF here, which talks about some of the data import specifics. So there's some tricks that you can learn here. So that's useful. There's also a page here, which also talks about importing and some details, different import options. And then the very last thing I just wanted to say is mapping fields and importing takes a specific knowledge of Darwin Core, and it's kind of an advanced step. So if you're not super comfortable with Darwin Core and with field mapping, I recommend that you have us help import the data, at least the first time. We could even meet with you and go through the whole steps and explain some of this face to face. So don't feel shy about asking us to help out with that, because it's really important to do it correctly, get the data in correctly.